I'm talking to Liger, and me and Liger are talking about the eighth pick of the 2020 draft. And Liger is from Cyberspace, and I am from Cyberspace too. I'm rakish, and first question is where where does Cousins sit in this draft?
Does Cousins sit in this draft? Ooh, that's a fun question. I like that question. The question, I like that question because I've had a couple conversations where this draft has been talked about as being very deep. And I view depth, I think, differently than most people because I view depth as a whole as opposed to what a lot of people talk about when they talk about depth is there's depth in the first round. So outside of picks like 1 through 4, there's like more players. So I thought that the 2019 draft was very deep. And I think this draft had some depth. As far as where Cousins sits, we have the advantage of seeing another year of Cousins, so we know a little bit more about him and who he is. I would say that
no, we're not counting his the next year. We're counting where he would be if he was a year younger.
Top 10. He shouldn't have slid to 7th. Last year, that was weird, in my personal opinion. So I'd say top 10 to individually rank him in this draft, I think is more complicated. Because basically in this draft, picks roughly 4 through 9 or 10 are almost interchangeable. So you could probably make an argument to slot him in anywhere from 4 to, 8. I had to guess, thinking about it.
So are you joining my draft contest this year?
Maybe. I have to actually finish my full list. is lagging a little behind due to work being very different now. So had a little less time to work on some scouting stuff than I normally do. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that I'm going to get together like a list of like 50 or so names that I can kind of throw out there.
Yeah. You were 1 short last year, so
was I?
I think you have to. I think you have to get to 60.
Yeah, the problem I always have is when I get into that like late 40s, early 50s, is I run out of players that I actually want to draft. I'm like, So I can probably do that. I can probably add some names that are kind of more bubble guys, and I'm like, I guess.
Yeah, I am kind of worried that if Rossi falls, that everyone will take Rossi, and that kind of takes the fun out of it, But if Rossi doesn't make it to 8, it'll probably be pretty spread out about who different people want.
I think Rossi will make it to 8.
Okay, well, so who do we don't have to talk about?
I mean, if we want to talk about the defenseman, we can, but I don't think we have to.
No, not that. But who is not getting to 8?
I don't think Cole Perfetti is getting to 8. There's a lot of chatter that.
Well, I think that's a possibility, but what I'm saying is that Lafreniere isn't getting to 8.
Who's definitely not? Okay, that's easy. Lafreniere is not getting to 8th. Byfield is not getting to 8th. Stützle is not getting to 8th.
Right. And that's it.
Drysdale will not be there at 8th.
Really? Okay.
I don't think so. I think with 7 teams drafting ahead of you, the chances of no one drafting a defenseman are very, 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 very low. It's possible, but I think probably Drysdale will go right in that kind of. I honestly think he'll go to one of Ottawa's picks. They'll take Drysdale.
Okay. Past that, topic is for you is who?
So if we eliminate all them, who's my top pick? Oh man. Ooh. Well, I do have. I've redone my list a couple of times because this draft is kind of a little smushed together. But I can't get Marco Rossi out of the position that he's in, which is right behind those three forwards that we just mentioned: Lafreniere, Byfield, Stützle, and then Rossi. So that would be my first guy that I'm looking at is Marco Rossi.
Actually, for me, I can't get the numbers for Lafreniere to work. Like for the decade, I have him at 13.
Yeah.
And I have four guys ahead of him for the decade, which to me is an amazing draft.
Yeah.
I
think I like Lafreniere, but I don't love Lafreniere. I feel weird saying that because everyone is very high on him, but I have questions.
Yeah. So I'm kind of not like everyone else because everyone else has him first, no question, and I'm like, he's fine, but I don't think he's the best player there. Anyway,
I wonder if he's the best player there. I think he gets credit for being. I think his size plays into that, and I think he does certain things that are great. They're very great, and I don't want to take away from that. But I think it's one of those things where the hype train maybe has just kept going for so long that he's just. As far as, maybe like on the amateur, on the pro scouting side, sure, someone could go crazy with the first overall pick since we don't know who has it. And they could do something crazy and not take him, but I would be shocked.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's Montreal because I'm a conspiracy theorist. But we'll see what they decide. But the chart that I wanted to show you is that before this year, how do I get rid of it? Go away. Before this year, not this one. This is something. I can hide it. Hide floating everything. Before this year, I thought, or I did how you relate your points versus the second best player of the team. I did that wrong because I thought it was like one number, but the number for Lafreniere, who's very old, will be very different than the number for Byfield. So you kind of have to group them by month, and then go them that way. So this is the U20, and then Byfield is way out there, and that's why I like them. I like Greg and want to look at Rossi. So,
I mean, that's one thing to think about with Rossi is he is extremely old for his draft class. Although this is a weird draft class where they tend to skew old.
but that's my point. He is old for the draft class, but that doesn't make him necessarily bad.
No.
And even the OHL, which for me is about 10% stronger than the Q.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read this chart on like this angle here, so like to me this group of players is fairly equivalent.
Right.
You know, Tavares had a half a down year and a half a good year as a 17-year-old. But so I really like Rossi for this reason, and I think he's really good. And it'd be amazing if he's there at 8. I can't believe it happens, but you know, I guess it could.
I mean, I think it's a very realistic possibility because he's 5'9" and maybe a half, depending on who you're looking at. It's one of the annoying things about not having the combine is I don't have his exact height and weight.
Yeah. But I don't think it's a height game anyway. It's a weight game.
Right. Well, that's one of the knocks against Rossi is that he's fully physically close to what his final playing weight could be. Like he's a physically strong player already. So there's, some of the stuff that I've read is, well, yeah, he's able to do some of these things in juniors because he's strong enough to, but in the NHL, there's going to be that 6'2" defenseman leaning on him and he won't be able to do it. And I'm just like, I think he'll just push the defenseman off of himself and continue to do his thing. I don't think he'll care.
Yeah. That's pretty much where I am. So who was next for you?
So I keep going back and forth on this one. It's Rossi is the easy pick, I think, for me at what were we at? 4 technically, because I'm not counting the defenseman right now. So the next one is Rossi, and then after that, I go back and forth because I do like some things that I see from Lucas Raymond, but I have some major questions about Lucas Raymond. And so I like to go crazy here, and I kind of love Seth Jarvis, so I might throw him in at number 5 just to spice things up right now and give us something to kind of debate a little bit.
Well, we pretty much look at things the same way. I have Jarvis as 21st for the decade, so that's.
Geez, maybe I should leave Raymond there for now. And we can debate that. I don't get Jarvis's ranking in almost any of them. I think the highest I've seen him at might be 8 or 9, somewhere in there, probably 9. Most of them.
No. Someone has him at 7.
Someone had him at 7. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of them don't. Let me see if I can. Should have had this up already, but I don't. Let me pull up Elite Prospects because they keep a list of a bunch of rankings. Oh yeah, so Hockey Prospects has him at 7, but then from there, his next highest ranking is 11, which is NHL Central Scouting. So you can throw out 11 right there because they don't combine their American and NHL Central Scouting drives me up a wall. Like what the hell? So really the next one is McKean's at 12, and then you got a couple 13s. ISS has him at 29, which is laughable. Futures Considerations has him at 16, as long as, what Elite Prospects is showing is pretty updated. McKenzie had him at 18. That's just – he is going to be one of these guys like Nick Robertson who, for whatever reason, whether it's size, whether it's because the first half wasn't what it was, whether it was he didn't get to play a huge role or a role at all in, whatever tournament that some of these people are going to, he's going to slide. And it's always hilarious. It's always hilarious because there's no reason for it. The data doesn't support it. If you watch him on tape, it doesn't support it. If you read anything about him, it doesn't support him. If you hear him speak, it doesn't support him. It's not like this kid is walking into interviews being like, hockey is stupid and I don't really care. I'm just kind of good at it. He's like, I love hockey. Hockey is the greatest thing ever. I hope I get bigger. I'm working really hard. So I do not understand Seth Jarvis's ranking. I don't understand why it isn't consistently in the top 7 or 8. It is baffling to me.
I think scouts make their choices very early, and then they don't change them.
I think you're right. I think since they have time on their side, they see these players younger. I don't start looking at players until their draft year because I don't get paid to do this. So I think they get an impression of a player, and it's very hard to move off of that impression. And I think Seth Jarvis didn't do himself a lot of favors to start the season. He wasn't bad, just so we're clear. I think he had like 35 points in like 31 games or something. Like he was still pretty good. And then he came back from Christmas and just burned the league to the ground. He burned the WHL to the ground. It's currently on fire. It's in rubble. Dylan Cousins, who was a year older and much bigger, scored less points than he did. And you're telling me that Seth Jarvis isn't a top 10 pick? Well, the only reason is size and, I don't know, the year before. I mean, even then, he scored pretty decently for his 17-year-old season. It wasn't great, but it wasn't awful.
Yeah. Well, I have 200 for the decade. And at age 16. And then at age 17, he's like 10.
I mean, he jumps up. And the other thing too, he's not super young. He's right in the middle of this draft class. He's a February 1st birthday, which is fine. But comparing that to, your Marco Rossi, Rossi's entire year this year was his 18-year-old year. Jarvis's half of his year was a 17-year-old year, was the end of his 17-year-old year. And he is a little bit smaller. He is 5'10" and only about 172 pounds. Physically, he is going to have a higher ceiling than some of these other guys because he's physically not at his peak yet. It's one of the reasons why when people talk about Lundell at 8th, I know Seth Jarvis will be on the board. I can almost guarantee you he will be on the board. And you're sitting here trying to tell me I should draft Lundell over Jarvis, and I'm like, I don't know about that. That worries me because Lundell is, 6'1", 187 pounds or whatever, playing against men. Like, we know kind of what he's going to look like. Like, he's probably, and I wrote this on Saberspace, he's about 90% of the way, maybe 95% of the way to the finished hockey player he's going to be. Jarvis might be at 70% of that, 60% of that.
Yeah, I think Lundell might be 8th on my board, just in case.
Oh, so we should wait to talk about him then. We'll get to him then. We'll get to him then. I feel like we spent a lot of time on Jarvis.
Yeah. So the other chart on Jarvis. I didn't really explain this chart. This is the how good the team is. This is plus minus the goal for the team, and this is where the player sits relative to the second best player. So let's do looking at Jarvis.
this is actually really great to see on a chart, because this is something I started looking at with Sean Monahan, I believe, was the first player that I really looked at stuff like this, like team versus the player, because he, if I am remembering correctly, he was like 20 or 30 points or something like that higher than the next closest person. And there was talk about him sliding, which he didn't really do. He slid a little, but it didn't make a lot of sense, because I'm like, you realize how good this guy is, right? Holy crap, is that Seth Jarvis next to Connor McDavid? Woo! Woo! Oh, but still my heart.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how Kino Pukinen got here, because he's always been a problem for my system. So I'm kind of happy that he's kind of aging out. So yeah,
well, there's
but like, had I had this chart before, I would have realized how good Valeno was. And
yeah.
And I kind of miss Valeno. And,
Well, I like to see Robbie Fabry up there, because we should have traded for him and we didn't.
Yeah, well, we remember to look on this angle here. So he's pretty equivalent to Kirby Dash and Claude LaRue. So, you know, there's some good players here in this age group. You know,
I know it's Tyson Forrester down there too. He's been getting some. I mean, that's a talk for another day, but it's just curious to see him kind of in near to that line that you're talking about, that regression line.
Yeah. We'll talk about 38 another day, because it's boring enough, you know, I'm just talking about 8. So, so where were we? We were done with
Jarvis. So we did Rossi and Jarvis.
Right. So who do you have next?
I'd probably slot Raymond in here, even though him and Holtz have given me fits. And maybe I shouldn't even put them in here, because I think part of Raymond's problem is, when I watch him, I read all the great stuff he does and I see it, but it doesn't really translate, and that just bothers me. It bothers me, and I know that he's in the SHL, and he's super. Well, he's not super, but he's young, and I know a lot. I read a lot about him, because I was very unsure about him. He played on his team, you know, one of the bottom lines. He was getting like 10 minutes or less a night. So there he is. There's our boy. So it was just, it's hard, because you see the skill, but when you don't see it translate, that gives you pauses. And I get that, because I watched a lot of Alex Nylander in his draft year, and there were things where I was just like, he doesn't really like attack the net. He's just kind of off to the side, and he's got a decent shot, and he can kind of pass. So I guess he's good. And I get some of that with Raymond, and I get some of that with Holtz. And that worries me, because one of the problems I think the Sabres in particular have had is they have a lot of perimeter players. And I don't know if that is going to be Raymond forever, because, again, he's a kid playing in a men's league. But right now, that's kind of what happens with him, is he does battle, he works hard, nothing wrong with that. But he didn't really produce. Part of that is, you know, he didn't get the minutes to produce, and that's understandable. But even when you watch him with his World Junior highlight stuff, I'm like, I want more. One of the things I love about Rossi and Jarvis is, when I watch them, they're the chaos creator. So I've kind of mentioned this a few times, and I do just want to spend like 30 seconds on this. When you're looking a lot of times at any player, Darlene's actually really good at creating chaos. What I mean by that is there's somebody in the offensive zone who, because of the way that they play the game or what they do or how they do it, it forces that other team to break down. It causes them to end up in some sort of chaotic mode where they're chasing, or you've beat one player, so somebody else has to step up. So it's creating chaos, and from chaos you get the goals. I don't see a lot of that with Ream versus Marco Rossi. Marco Rossi will run you over, and if he runs you over, something else is happening. That's creating chaos. Seth Jarvis will throw a deke, shoot a shot. Who the hell knows? He's a creative little guy, and that creates chaos. Lucas Raymond, and again, I don't know if this is a product of him being in the SHL, but I did watch all his World Junior highlights. I don't see a lot of that chaos, and part of that is because he sticks to the perimeter sometimes. He's on the edges of those circles of, the face-off dots, and he's looking to make that pass, which, again, a pass can create chaos. Reinhardt does this, but that's not necessarily what I want. And so that's kind of a personal preference with me and why I struggle with him, because everyone is telling me he's great. And I don't necessarily want to draft him because I'm unsure if he is.
This is a 17-year-old. So I have him 807th, which doesn't really bother me because playing in the SHL, I'm not score as a 17-year-old. But the reason I don't like Raymond is because as a 16-year-old, he didn't score either.
Right. There's something there that just doesn't translate.
Oh, he is 52 for the decade, which isn't bad, but it's not near the players that I want to pick here. So
right, like I like a Cole Perfetti.
Right.
Yeah.
I forget where
I see Holtz is higher.
33. Yeah. Rossi was 33 for the decade at 16. But so I'd be fine with getting someone like Raymond at 8 in a normal year, but I think this is like a tremendous year for 8. And that's why I'd rather trade Cousins than this pick, because I think this pick is going to be really good. So, who's next on your list?
I don't love his playing style, but that's a personal thing. But I do recognize that he is very talented, so I'd probably put Cole Perfetti here.
He scores a lot.
Scores a lot. I agree. He scores a ton, and I mean this part of that is like I mean that's probably a little bias on my part because I watch him, like I look at the numbers and I see those and I understand those, and then I watch him play and I'm like, you're fine. I just don't love your playing style, so I have to kind of consciously think about that bias for me. So really, this is where I would slot him
in. But we're also into hypothetical at this point because either Jarvis or Rossi is going to be there.
I think we can guarantee that Jarvis will be there.
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident that it would be I mean, every once in a while we see something crazy like what was it? Maurice Sider or whatever the hell his name was, the German last year who I think Detroit maybe took like super early, and I was just like, what the hell?
People love him.
All right, that's
you know,
that's akin to drafting Zachary Senyshyn over Matthew Barzal in 2015.
No one loves Phoenicians, but everyone on the
Okay,
Hall
that's
of Fame
true.
board loves Peter.
That's true. That's true. Good point. But Perfetti, Perfetti's good. The only real knock I've read, watched, you can kind of see it, is his overall speed isn't great. Mainly what I'm looking at when it comes to speed, or in skating in general, is I'm looking at three things when I look at skating. How quick can you start? Because most of your puck races are what, 10 yards maybe, 10 feet maybe. You're not going the whole length of the ice for the most part. I want to know how good your agility and edge work are, and that's one of the problems I have with Lundell. And then I want to know about your overall like skating strength. So one of the problems Reinhardt had early on was if you bumped into him, Reinhardt was falling over. He's not the quickest, but that was a big problem. So you got to be strong in your skates. I think Perfetti has two of those three. I think he's agile enough, and I think he's pretty decent. I mean, especially for his age, being strong on his skates. I worry about his kind of quickness, though, which is kind of why he slides a little for me. And also, and I've seen this, people tend in some places to rate him or rank him higher than Rossi. I don't know if that's a product of weight or size or what's going on there, but I think Rossi is a better player. I think Rossi has a better shot than Perfetti. Perfetti really, he's got great hands. You'll see him stick handle, that's awesome. He's got good vision. I like watching him. Like if you actually sit down and watch all of the highlights you get, I think his assists are almost more entertaining than some of his goals, as he does have a good pass. I don't know. Some people really like his wrist shot. I think it's fine. Like I think it's not like bad. It's good. But I gravitated towards his passing more, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's kind of why he falls here for me. I want him to work on his skating a little bit. And I think that's one of the reasons he could be better overall, especially in the defensive end, is if he gets that skating kind of going a little bit better, maybe that'll help him get back better, help him stay in position better on the defensive side of the puck.
I think he's totally fine pick at 8, but I think there's better people out there. So I hope he goes early.
I think he's going to go to number 4 to Detroit because that's what everyone's saying.
Yeah, that's what the rumors are.
Well, I mean, they had Sider there going to Detroit last year. That was a rumor that was out there. That was like, nah, man, and then sure enough, it happened. So, I mean, they'll have their pick at 4. At 4, you can basically pick anybody other than Lafreniere, Byfield, and Stützle, unless something weird happens. I guess it could. LA could take Drysdale, and there you go. There's some chaos for you.
So I can't make the defenseman work at all, and it's not surprising for Sanderson because he's a defensive guy, but maybe something is wrong with my numbers, but I just can't get it to work.
I think it's hard with it. It's almost like you have to. I mean, yeah, because you're filtering out by defensemen. I like the fact that Deline is still at the because he should be. And I get annoyed when people are just like, he's not that good. Cale Makar. Cale Makar is a year and a half older. Sit down. No one at 18 or 19 did what Dahlin did. Not in the modern NHL. There's Drysdale.
So, yeah, 76, which, worries me. So I'm not taking
Maybe your model's right.
Yeah, I'm not taking it out of defenseman. Maybe for 38. Grands might be there at 38. So I'm thinking about that.
Old Grands. Oh, I gotta watch more on him actually. So thank you for bringing that name back up into my brain. Yeah, and there's Dahlin way above everything. Oh, that kid's good. It's a little bit okay. So yeah, I think Perfetti will be gone. So
I think that's everybody.
We didn't really talk about Lundell or Holtz.
Well,
there's a lot of people who like Holtz. I feel bad. I want nothing to do with Lundell. I have no desire. And it's not anything against the player. The player is going to. I can almost guarantee you, Lundell will be an NHL hockey player. He has the positioning and the smarts to do it. My only concern is, at best, the very best, he's kind of a middling 2C. I don't see how he can be better than that. He's like maybe a weaker version of Ryan O'Reilly, because I don't know if he'll ever have the offense that Ryan O'Reilly produces. Maybe he will. Maybe I'm wrong. I can be wrong.
I think he scores a lot. So where is he? Let me search this.
He does okay. I don't know.
52 is really
I want
good
someone else to take him, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but 52 for the decade is really, really good for someone who's a defensive player. And his league numbers weren't so hot last year, but they were really good as a 16-year-old.
Right. That's one thing that actually kind of worries me a little bit about him. So he played in short version. He's an October 3rd birthday. So he's super, super old for this draft class, but then so is Rossi, so is Lafreniere. There's a bunch of old guys in this class for whatever reason. That's how it shakes out. So that means the 17-year-old year really was 2018, 2019, and this was his 18-year-old year. And my concern is, looking at the numbers, is when he was in the league as a rookie, he got 19 points in 38 games. It's great. He had 9 goals. So he played 6 more games this year. And if you just look at the raw numbers, it looks great. You got 9 more points. That's fantastic. But he only got 1 more goal. So this is his 2nd year in the league. He did improve his scoring, but why does his goals only go up by 1? The thing to remember about Lundell is, if you're drafting Lundell, you're not technically drafting him for his offense. You're drafting him for the fact that in Liga, his Corsi 4 was like, I think, 2nd or 1st or some absurd number like that. Like, people don't shoot on his team when he's on the ice. Like, they carry the play, and that's awesome. My concern is the Sabres have so few. They really have none. There's no high-end prospects in the system outside of Cousins. There's no one who's going to carry your offense. There's no one creating the chaos. There's no one to fill in if, God forbid, Sam Reinhart ever gets hurt. Who the hell's going to play the right wing? God forbid Jack Eichel ever gets hurt, because we don't have any other centers. And the problem I have with Lundell is even if he becomes a decent, good 2C, that's his ceiling. That's what he's going to be. I don't think he's ever going to be a 90.1C, like, tearing up both zones. I don't see that in his skill set. And the Sabres, if I'm drafting for them, they need that high horsepower, high octane player who is going to produce. I don't know if Lundell's that or if I'm just getting better Johan Larsson. And that worries me.
It wouldn't worry me if Rossi and Jarvis weren't there. No.
If Rossi and Jarvis were both gone in this scenario, I'm assuming Perfetti's gone. Let's just say there's like a run on forwards and like Lundell is there. Sure, you could probably talk me into that. Like I could see it. Like it's a safer pick in my opinion. Like I said, he is going to be an NHL player. You're getting an NHL caliber player. He can probably, I think he's signed for one more year. Pretty sure. But I mean, honestly, he could probably play in the NHL this year. He's old enough. I don't know how much more he's going to get out of playing in the Liga. He really needs to just work on his skating and kind of getting used to the North American game, in my opinion. But I don't have a problem if other players are gone. But I know what's going to happen. Rossi may be gone, but I know Jarvis will be sitting there. It's going to be sitting there at 8th, and they're going to, like, go off the board and take, like, I don't know, somebody we haven't even talked about. And I'm going to cry into my pillow like I did when they took Ryan Johnson instead of Kaliev, Robertson, Hoglander. Hell, they could have taken Shane Pinto and I would have been less pissed. It's just, ugh. I don't know. Yes, they are. Because I didn't want to sit through another draft of, well, we can't draft out of the CHL because we only get 2 years to decide if we want to sign him to a contract. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? A terrible reason. No. Maverick Bork, I guess, would be the next kind of player. I don't know. He's outside of mine. I was just looking at the list of guys who, other than Lundell. I mean, there's Jack Quinn. We could talk about Jack Quinn. He's interesting. If you want to spend 2 seconds just to kind of mention him. Quinn plays on the same.
Doesn't score enough for me.
I agree. I really agree because he plays on the same team as somebody else who scores like it's going out of style. I mean, he plays on a team. He plays on a team with Rossi, and he doesn't play with Rossi. They typically split them up from everything I've ever read. But he's got a September 19th, 2001 birthday, so he's also old for this class. And in the previous year in the OHL, he scored 32 points in 61 games, which is ugh. And then this year he did 89 and 62, which sounds great, except for the fact that he's been 18 the entire season. Like you got to give me more. If you're going to be that old, you got to give me more. If his birthday was, September 14th, so he was the youngest player in this draft class, oh, man, I would be all over this. I'd be, like, screaming from the hills, oh, my God, draft this guy. Are you kidding me? 89 points? Super young? No, he's super old for this draft class. Buyer beware. Age matters. Age matters so much, and I worry that teams don't realize that. Or at least if they do, they don't think about it enough. So really quick though, to put Quinn into perspective, just so people have kind of an idea. So Marco Rossi is almost the exact same age. They're both September 2001 birthdays. So Marco Rossi last year scored 65 points in 53 games. It's pretty good. Jack Quinn last year, again, same team. So this is a great comparable. Scored 32 points in 61 games. So Rossi outproduced him in the previous year. And then again, outproduced him this year. And those are the things that you want to see. And correct me if I'm wrong, but your model takes into account their previous scoring, right?
But so this side is just a single year,
Okay.
and you get some outliers because people like that guy in Toronto now. Nylander had a great month somewhere.
Right.
And so, we're looking at 16, not 17. This is 17.
Well, some of them it's 7.
Nylander had a great month in the LVS scan, and so he always comes in high. Lane had a great 17, but a very poor 16. And Jarvis had a pretty poor 16, and Bennett had a pretty poor 16. So what I do on this side is I average all their 16s and average all their 17s and add them together, and that's why Jarvis is at 21 over here, because he is very good at 17, but not at 16, and it
right.
It moves people down like Lane's 45. And
well, there's Dylan Cousins there at 41.
So I generally draft off of here, but I work off of here to see what the different years look like.
Gotcha.
But yeah. So how long before you want to talk about 38?
Yeah, do you want to do that in a new podcast then?
Yeah, I think we've punished people enough here.
I probably need a couple. I probably need a couple of weeks just because I honestly haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
And I do want to read up on some. Actually, have some names, and also especially for a pick like 38, I don't want to bring in names of guys who won't be there. I think that's kind of the easy thing to do, and I've seen it on some podcasts where they'll be like, if this guy slides to 38, I'm like, he's never going to slide to 38. Stop. It's never happening. So I definitely want to take a look at some rankings and kind of gauge who's going to be there. And the hard part is finding the guys who aren't ranked anywhere near there who should be. So
great. So we'll talk again in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Have fun. Stay safe.
How do I stop this?